When I came to Thanksgiving, my daughter said, "Who invited you, old woman? This is family only. Leave." I left silently and crossed her out of my will. A week later, she found out and... Good day, dear listeners. It's Clara again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I had always believed that family was everything. For 68 years, I'd built my life around that simple truth. My late husband, Robert, and I had raised Jennifer with all the love we could give. After Robert passed 5 years ago, Jennifer became my whole world. I helped her through college, supported her wedding to Brad, and when my 2 grandchildren were born, I thought I'd finally found my purpose again. The house felt empty without Robert, but Jennifer's weekly calls and Sunday dinners kept me going. I'd spend hours baking her favorite apple pie, knitting blankets for the kids, and sending little gifts just to remind her I was thinking of them. When she asked me to babysit, I dropped everything. When they needed money for a new car last year, I didn't hesitate to help. That's what mothers do, isn't it? But something started changing about 6 months ago. The calls became shorter, less frequent. Jennifer's voice sounded different, distant, almost irritated when I'd ask about the grandchildren. "Mom, I'm busy," she'd say, cutting conversations short. When I'd suggest visiting, there was always an excuse. Brad's work schedule, the kids' activities, home renovations. I told myself not to worry. Young families are busy. I remembered those years myself, juggling everything. But the knot in my stomach wouldn't go away. Why did Jennifer suddenly need to check her calendar before confirming our regular Sunday dinners? Why did she stop answering when I called, only texting back hours later with brief responses? 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, I asked if I should bring anything to their celebration. Jennifer's reply came 2 days later. "We'll let you know." That was it. No warmth, no excitement, just 4 cold words. I stared at my phone, trying to understand what I'd done wrong. Had I been too pushy? Too involved? I'd raised her to be independent, but maybe I'd failed somehow. The morning of Thanksgiving, I spent hours preparing. I made my famous sweet potato casserole, the one Jennifer had loved since childhood. I bought new outfits for the grandchildren. Little Emma would look adorable in that dress. I even got Brad his favorite bourbon, the expensive one he'd mentioned months ago. My hands shook slightly as I wrapped everything. Something felt off, but I pushed the feeling down. This was family. This was Thanksgiving. I arrived at their house at 2 o'clock, exactly when Jennifer had finally confirmed the day before. The driveway was full of cars I didn't recognize. Through the window, I could see people laughing, children running. My heart lifted. A full house meant a real celebration. I grabbed my dishes and gifts and walked to the door. I rang the doorbell, waited. Rang again. Finally, the door opened, and there stood Jennifer. But the woman looking at me wasn't my daughter, not the one I knew. Her face was cold, her eyes hard. Behind her, I could see Brad's parents, his sister's family, even some of Jennifer's friends from work. Everyone was there. Everyone except, apparently, me. "Mom," Jennifer said, her voice sharp. "What are you doing here?" The question hit me like a physical blow. It's Thanksgiving, sweetheart. You said 2 o'clock. "Who invited you, old woman?" The words came out flat, emotionless. "This is family only. You need to leave." I stood there, frozen. Surely I'd misheard. Surely my own daughter hadn't just called me old woman and told me I wasn't family. Behind her, I could see Brad smirking. His mother looked away. No one moved to help. No one said a word. "Jennifer, I don't understand." My voice cracked. "I said leave, now. You're embarrassing yourself." The casserole dish was still warm in my hands. The gifts bag cut into my wrist. Inside that house, I could hear my grandchildren laughing, Emma's voice calling for her daddy. And here I stood, on the doorstep, being turned away like a stranger. Like nothing. I wanted to argue, to demand an explanation, to push past her and make her see reason. But something in her eyes stopped me. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. This was cruelty. So I did the only thing my shattered dignity would allow. I turned around and walked back to my car. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I placed the casserole and gifts carefully on their porch and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw Jennifer shut the door without a second glance. That night, I sat in my empty house and made a phone call to my lawyer. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jennifer's face. Cold, dismissive, cruel. Who invited you, old woman? The words played on a loop in my mind. My own daughter. The baby girl I'd nursed through countless sleepless nights, whose hand I'd held on her first day of school, whose tears I'd dried through every heartbreak. By dawn, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. The house was silent except for the ticking of Robert's old clock. How many times had I sat here planning birthday parties, Christmas celebrations, family gatherings? How many hours had I spent in this kitchen baking for Jennifer, cooking her favorite meals, preparing for moments we'd share? And for what? To be called an old woman and thrown out like trash? I forced myself to think logically. This wasn't a sudden outburst. People don't treat their mothers like that without warning. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our text messages from the past year. The pattern was there, clear as day once I looked for it. Jennifer's responses getting shorter, plans being canceled, my questions going unanswered. The last time she'd said, "I love you," was... I scrolled back months, 8 months ago. What had changed? I opened my laptop and checked my bank records. There it was. The car loan I'd co-signed last year, $35,000. The temporary help with their mortgage when Brad's business had a slow quarter, $12,000. The money for Emma's private preschool, $8,000. Christmas gifts, birthday presents, countless little transfers here and there. In the past 2 years alone, I'd given them over $70,000. The money didn't bother me. I'd always planned to help my family. That's what savings are for. But now I saw something else in those transactions. Every time I'd sent money, Jennifer's calls had increased temporarily. She'd been warmer, friendlier. "Oh, Mom, you're a lifesaver. I don't know what we'd do without you." And then, as soon as the money cleared, the distance returned. Had my daughter been using me? Had our relationship become nothing more than a transaction? I thought about Brad's smirk yesterday, his mother looking away. Were they all in on this? Had they been laughing at me behind my back, the foolish old woman who'd throw money at them while they planned holidays without her? The pain in my chest was physical. I'd lost Robert to cancer, but at least he'd loved me until his last breath. This was different. This was betrayal. This was knowing that the person you'd die for wouldn't even invite you to Thanksgiving dinner. I stood up and walked to Robert's study. I hadn't changed much since he died. His law books still lined the shelves. His desk still held his favorite pen. Robert had been a practical man. He'd taught me to face problems head on. "Eleanor," he used to say, "never let anyone mistake your kindness for weakness." I opened the file cabinet where we kept our important documents. There it was, our will, updated 3 years ago after Robert's death. Everything was set to go to Jennifer. The house, the investments, the savings, my life insurance policy. Over $800,000 in total. I'd worked hard all my life. Robert had worked even harder, and we'd been careful with money because we wanted to leave Jennifer secure. And she'd called me an old woman and slammed the door in my face. My hands were steady as I picked up the phone. James Thornton had been Robert's lawyer and friend for 30 years. He'd handled our will, our estate planning, everything. If anyone could help me now, it was James. Eleanor? His voice was warm when he answered. How are you? How was your Thanksgiving? The question almost broke me, but I kept my voice level. James, I need to make some changes to my will. Can you see me today? There was a pause. James knew me well enough to hear what I wasn't saying. Of course. Come by my office at 10. Eleanor, is everything all right? No, I said simply, but it will be. I hung up and looked around Robert's study. He'd always told me I was too soft, too giving. You can't let people take advantage of you, Ellie, he'd warned. I'd laughed it off. My family would never do that. How wrong I'd been. But I wasn't that foolish woman anymore. Jennifer had made her choice. Now I would make mine. James Thornton's office smelled like old leather and coffee, comforting and familiar. He'd handled Robert's funeral arrangements, helped me navigate the financial maze after I became a widow. When I walked in that Friday morning, his expression told me he already suspected something serious. Eleanor, sit down. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Tell me what happened. I did. Every detail. The excluded invitation, the cold rejection, the door shutting in my face. James's jaw tightened as I spoke. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, he finally said. No one deserves that, especially not from their own child. He pulled out a legal pad. You want to change your will. I want Jennifer removed completely. My voice didn't shake. Everything goes to charity. Medical research, children's hospitals, causes that matter. She gets nothing. James nodded slowly. I have to ask, are you certain? This isn't a decision to make in anger. Wills can be changed again, but family rifts can be caused by daughters who treat their mothers like garbage? I met his eyes. I'm not angry, James. I'm done. She made it clear I'm not family. So be it. He drafted the documents right there. My house, my savings, my investments, my life insurance, everything would go to carefully selected charities. Jennifer's name appeared only once, explicitly excluded from inheritance, with a clause explaining she'd been provided for during my lifetime and required nothing further. Sign here, here, and here. James indicated the lines. I'll need 2 witnesses. His secretary and junior partner came in. They didn't ask questions, just witnessed my signature and added their own. It took 20 minutes to dismantle what I'd spent decades building for my daughter. This is legally binding, James confirmed. If you die tomorrow, Jennifer receives nothing. You can change it any time, but until you do, this stands. Good, I gathered my purse. Send me copies for my records. Eleanor? James caught my arm as I stood. What are you going to tell her? Nothing yet. Let her wonder. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in days. The power had shifted. Jennifer thought I was weak, thought I'd take any treatment she dished out because I was desperate for family. She was about to learn otherwise. The call came Tuesday afternoon. I was in my garden, pruning roses that Robert had planted years ago, when my phone rang. Jennifer's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Mom? Her voice had that familiar artificial sweetness. The tone I now recognized meant she wanted something. How are you? Fine. I kept pruning, phone tucked against my shoulder. Listen, I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. It was just, we had limited space and Brad's family, she wasn't even trying to make it believable. But I played along. I see. Anyway, I wanted to ask you something. Brad's business has an opportunity to expand, but we need capital. Just $20,000. We'll pay you back, of course, with interest. It's a really great investment. There it was. 4 days after humiliating me, she wanted money. The audacity was almost impressive. No, I said simply. Silence. Then, carefully. Mom, did you hear me? This is important. It's for our family's future. No. I cut a dead rose, watched the petals fall. I won't be lending you money anymore. What? The sweetness evaporated. Mom, we need this. The business. Is your business, Jennifer, not mine. You can't be serious. You've always helped us. Her voice rose. What, you're punishing me because of one dinner? Are you really that petty? One dinner. She'd reduced my humiliation to one dinner. I'm not punishing anyone, I said calmly. I'm simply choosing how to spend my money, and I choose not to spend it on people who call me an old woman and slam doors in my face. Oh my God, you're still on about that? Jennifer's laugh was harsh. Mom, grow up. You're so dramatic. We had a full house. You weren't invited. Big deal. Stop being such a victim. Every word confirmed what I'd suspected. She truly didn't see anything wrong with what she'd done. In her mind, I was the problem. Overly sensitive, demanding, pathetic. I have to go, I said. Mom, wait. The money. Goodbye, Jennifer. I hung up. She called back immediately. I didn't answer. She called 3 more times, then started texting. Mom? Don't be ridiculous. We're family. You can't cut us off. Brad is really counting on this. You're being selfish. I blocked her number and went back to my roses. That evening, I received an email from Brad's business account. A formal investment proposal, complete with projected returns. They were trying to make it sound professional, like I was a business partner rather than a mother being exploited. I deleted it without responding. 2 days later, Jennifer showed up at my house. I watched through the window as she rang the doorbell, knocked, rang again. I didn't answer. She couldn't do to me what I'd done to her. I owned this house, not her. Eventually, she left a note under my door. Mom, we need to talk. You're acting crazy. Call me. I threw it away, but I also opened my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I logged into social media and looked at Jennifer's accounts. Her Thanksgiving photos were public. There she was, smiling with Brad's family, the table laden with food. The caption read, "Grateful for our real family, the ones who matter. No drama, no guilt trips, just love. Real family. No drama." Was that how she saw me? As drama? As someone who didn't matter? I screenshot everything. James had told me to document any relevant communications. This was relevant. This was proof that her cruelty wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. This was intentional, and now I had evidence. By the end of November, I'd made my next moves. I called the bank and removed Jennifer as the beneficiary on my accounts. I contacted my insurance company and changed the policy designation from Jennifer Roberts Matthews to American Cancer Society. Each phone call was easy, clinical, just paperwork, just names being erased from forms. It was astonishing how simple it was to remove someone from your life legally. A few signatures, a few forms, and suddenly, 38 years of motherhood became administratively irrelevant. I also did something I should have done years ago. I hired a financial advisor, not James, but someone who specialized in elder finances and estate protection. Margaret Chen came highly recommended, and when I explained my situation, she didn't judge. She just nodded and made notes. You'd be surprised how common this is, Margaret said. Adult children viewing elderly parents as ATMs. The good news is you caught it before doing any real damage to your security. She reviewed my finances. You're in excellent shape. The money you gave Jennifer, while substantial, didn't hurt your long-term stability. But no more loans, no more temporary help. Agreed? Agreed. And if she asks again, she won't get the chance. Margaret helped me set up new accounts Jennifer didn't know about, moved my investments to different firms, created a financial structure that protected me. If anyone tries to claim undue influence over you or suggests you're incompetent, Margaret explained, this paper trail proves otherwise. You're making clear-headed financial decisions with professional guidance. I hadn't thought I'd need protection from accusations of incompetence, but Margaret was right to be cautious. Who knew what Jennifer might claim when she found out she'd been disinherited? The explosion came the second week of December. I never found out how Jennifer learned about the will change. Maybe James's office had a leak, or maybe she'd simply put pieces together. But on a cold Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang insistently. Through the window, I saw Jennifer and Brad on my porch. Both looked furious. I considered not answering. But no, I'd hidden from this confrontation long enough. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "What?" Jennifer hissed. "Did you do?" "I'm not sure what you mean." "Don't play stupid, Mother." Brad stepped forward. He'd never spoken to me like this before. Aggressive, intimidating. "We know you changed your will. We know you cut Jennifer out. That's my right." "Your right?" Jennifer's voice climbed. "That's my inheritance. Dad worked for that money. You can't just give it away." "Your father worked for our family's security," I corrected, "and I'm using it as I see fit, which doesn't include you." Brad's face darkened. "This is financial abuse. You're clearly not thinking straight. Elderly people make irrational decisions. I'm 68 and in perfect health. I made this decision with my lawyer and financial advisor. There's nothing irrational about it." "You spiteful old bitch," Brad snarled. Jennifer didn't even flinch at his words. That told me everything. This was how they talked about me in private. "You need to leave," I said calmly. "We're not leaving until you fix this." Jennifer's face was red. "You're going to call your lawyer right now and change that will back. I'm your daughter. I deserve—" "You deserve exactly what you've given me. Nothing." "We'll fight this," Brad threatened. "We'll get lawyers. We'll prove you were coerced or mentally incompetent or try." I met his eyes. "I have documentation of every conversation, every text, every social media post. I have witnesses to your treatment of me. I have professional evaluations of my mental and financial competence. What do you have? A sense of entitlement?" Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Finally, emotion. But I recognized this tactic too. How many times had she cried to get her way as a teenager? "Mom, please. I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I'm sorry I hurt you. Can't we work this out? I love you." "If you loved me, you wouldn't have slammed a door in my face. It was a mistake. I was stressed, and you showed me exactly who you are. I believe you now." Brad grabbed Jennifer's arm. "This isn't over. You're going to regret this." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. You're going to die alone, old woman, with no family, no grandchildren, nothing, and it'll be your own fault. Better alone than surrounded by people who only want my money." I stepped back. "Don't come here again. If you do, I'll call the police for trespassing." I closed the door. Through the wood, I could hear Jennifer sobbing and Brad cursing. I heard their car doors slam, the engine start, gravel spraying as they tore out of my driveway. Then silence. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I'd done it. I'd stood up to them. I hadn't caved, hadn't backed down, hadn't let them manipulate me. But Brad's words echoed. "You're going to die alone." Was he right? I walked through my empty house. Robert's chair sat vacant. No grandchildren's toys cluttered the floor. No family photos would be taken this Christmas. I'd chosen principle over family. I'd chosen dignity over love. Had I made the right choice? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Emma and little Jack. They were innocent in all this. They'd grow up never knowing their grandmother because of their parents' greed. Was I punishing them too? By morning, I'd made a decision. I needed space from all of this. I needed to clear my head and remember who I was before Jennifer, before motherhood, before I'd built my entire identity around being someone's parent. I booked a week at a bed and breakfast in Vermont. Somewhere quiet, somewhere I could think. I'd leave in 3 days, once I'd taken care of a few more things. I needed rest, but more than that, I needed to remember that Eleanor Morrison had value beyond what she could give to ungrateful children. The emails started arriving the next day, not from Jennifer's regular account, but from a new one, jenniferhartfelt@gmail.com. The subject lines were designed to tug at my emotions. I miss you, Mom. The kids ask about Grandma every day. Can we please talk, for Emma and Jack's sake? I didn't open them. I set up a filter that sent anything from Jennifer or Brad directly to a folder I could review with James if needed. I wouldn't subject myself to manipulation disguised as reconciliation. But Jennifer was persistent. She'd learned, apparently, that I was planning a trip to Vermont. On the morning I was supposed to leave, a flower delivery arrived at my door. 24 roses with a card. Mom, please don't leave angry. Let's fix this as a family. Love, Jennifer, Brad, Emma, and Jack. The children's names were pure manipulation, as if a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old had any say in sending flowers. I accepted the delivery, then immediately drove the bouquet to the local nursing home. The residents there would enjoy them more than I would. I was loading my car when a vehicle pulled up. Not Jennifer's SUV, but a car I didn't recognize. A woman got out. Brad's mother, Patricia. We'd met a handful of times at family events. She'd been one of the people in Jennifer's house on Thanksgiving, one of the ones who'd looked away when I was rejected. Eleanor, wait. She approached cautiously. Can we talk? About what? I know what happened at Thanksgiving. I know what Jennifer and Brad did. Patricia looked genuinely uncomfortable. I wanted to say something that day, but I'm ashamed to admit I stayed quiet. At least she was honest. Why are you here now? Because what they're doing is wrong. This campaign to get you to change your will, it's disgusting. She glanced at my packed car. Are you leaving town? For a week, I need space. Patricia nodded. I don't blame you. Look, I can't control my son and Jennifer. She's not who I thought she was. But I wanted you to know that not everyone in the family agrees with how you've been treated. It was something. A small acknowledgement that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined or exaggerated the cruelty. Thank you. Brad's father and I are appalled. We've told Brad that if he doesn't fix this, he'll have problems with us too. She hesitated. For what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. Don't let them bully you. After she left, I sat in my car for a moment. Patricia's visit had been unexpected. Maybe I wasn't as alone as Brad had threatened. Vermont was exactly what I needed. The bed and breakfast was run by a couple in their 70s, Tom and Barbara, who immediately made me feel welcome. That first evening, sitting by their fireplace with hot cider, I found myself telling them everything. Oh, honey, Barbara said when I finished. I'm so sorry, but you did exactly right. She's your daughter, though, I said. Doesn't that count for something? Being someone's mother doesn't mean accepting abuse, Tom interjected. We have 3 kids, and if any of them treated Barbara that way, they'd be cut off too. Family is about love and respect, not obligation and manipulation. Over that week, I met other guests at the B&B, a retired teacher named Susan, who'd gone through something similar with her son, a widower named Frank who'd learned to build a life after family disappointment, a young couple, Maria and James, who were estranged from their own parents due to toxicity and were building chosen family instead. Chosen family, Maria explained one evening over dinner, is the family you create from people who actually love and respect you. Blood doesn't mean they're good for you. I'd never thought about it that way. I'd always assumed blood ties were sacred, that mothers and daughters were bonded beyond breaking. But these people showed me a different truth. Family is what you make it, and sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away from people who hurt you, even if you share DNA. Susan gave me the phone number for a support group in my area, other seniors dealing with estrangement from adult children. It's more common than you think, she said. You're not alone, Eleanor. By the end of the week, I felt stronger. The constant anxiety that had plagued me since Thanksgiving had eased. I could breathe again. I could imagine a future that didn't revolve around Jennifer's approval or presence. On my last night in Vermont, I had dinner with Tom and Barbara. What are you going to do when you get home? Barbara asked. Live my life, I said simply. I'm going to join that support group. I'm going to volunteer, maybe at the library or the hospital. I'm going to take a painting class I've been putting off for years. I'm going to fill my life with people who value me. And Jennifer? She made her choice. I've made mine. Tom raised his glass. To new chapters. We clinked glasses, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. The next morning, I drove home with a clear head and a firmer resolve. Jennifer had tried to break me, to make me so desperate for family that I'd accept any treatment. Instead, she'd freed me. I was no longer chained to the idea that I needed her validation. When I pulled into my driveway, there was another note on my door. Jennifer's handwriting. Mom, we really need to talk. Please. I crumpled it without reading the rest and threw it away. My phone showed 17 missed calls from her, dozens of texts. I deleted them all without looking. I was done being manipulated. I was done being anyone's ATM. I was done being called an old woman by someone I'd given everything to. Eleanor Morrison was starting over, and this time, I was in control. They came on a Sunday afternoon, 2 weeks after I'd returned from Vermont. I was in my living room, attending my first virtual meeting of the estrangement support group Susan had recommended, when I heard the doorbell ring, then knock, then ring again, insistently. I muted my microphone. Excuse me, I told the group. Through the window, I could see Jennifer's car in my driveway. Both she and Brad were at the door, but this time something was different. They were dressed nicely, Brad in a button-down shirt, Jennifer in a dress I'd bought her last Christmas. They'd brought the children. Little Emma stood between them, holding a crayon drawing. Jack was in Brad's arms, too young to understand any of this. My heart clenched. Using the children. They were actually using the children. I walked to the door but didn't open it. What do you want? Mom, please let us in. Jennifer's voice was gentle, pleading. We want to talk. Really talk. We brought Emma and Jack. They miss you. Emma held up her drawing to the window. Gamma, I drew you a picture. My sweet granddaughter. 4 years old and already being used as a pawn in her parents' manipulation games. The rage I felt at Jennifer and Brad in that moment was white hot. But Emma was innocent. I opened the door. Thank you, Jennifer breathed. They filed in, Jennifer first, then Brad, carrying Jack, then Emma, who immediately hugged my legs. I missed you, Gamma, Emma said. Mommy said you were sick. Are you better now? Sick? I looked at Jennifer sharply. Well, you've been distant, Mom. I had to tell her something. Jennifer sat on my couch without being invited, as if she had every right to be here. Emma, why don't you show Grandma your drawing? Emma climbed into my lap, chattering about her preschool and her friends and her new doll. Jack reached for me from Brad's arms. Gamma. Gamma. These babies had no idea their parents were monsters. I held them, feeling my resolve waver. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe family was worth fighting for, worth compromising for. Maybe. So, Mom, Jennifer said, her voice warm but calculated. We've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. We realize we made mistakes. Big mistakes, Brad added, bouncing Jack on his knee. We should have communicated better. We should have been clearer about Thanksgiving plans. Clearer? The word came out sharper than I intended. Emma looked up at me, startled. I softened my voice. Sweetheart, why don't you go see if Grandma has any cookies in the kitchen? Cookies! Emma scrambled off my lap and ran toward the kitchen. Jack wriggled to follow his sister. The moment the children were gone, the masks dropped. We're willing to move past this, Jennifer said, her voice losing its warmth. If you're willing to be reasonable. Reasonable meaning what exactly? Meaning you restore the will, Brad stated flatly. Jennifer is your daughter. She deserves to inherit. This whole thing is ridiculous, and you know it. What I know is that you called me an old woman and told me to leave. God, you're still on about that? Jennifer's frustration showed. Mom, you're being so petty. So we had one bad day. One moment where I was stressed and said things I shouldn't have. Are you really going to throw away our entire relationship over that? It wasn't one moment. It was months of distance, of using me for money, of treating me like I didn't matter. We never used you, Jennifer insisted. We borrowed money, yes, but that's what family does. They help each other. And slamming doors in each other's faces? Is that what family does too? Brad leaned forward. Look, Eleanor, let's cut the crap. You're angry, we get it. You wanted an apology. Here it is. We're sorry. Happy? Now let's all move on like adults. That's not an apology. That's a transaction. What do you want from us? Jennifer's voice rose. You want us to grovel? You want us to pretend you're perfect? You weren't exactly Mother of the Year, you know. You were always too pushy, too clingy, too involved in our lives. Too involved? I was there whenever you needed me. We didn't always need you. You just assumed we did. You smothered me my whole life, and now you're playing the victim because I finally set boundaries. The words landed like punches. Is that how she saw my love? As smothering? As something she'd had to escape? From the kitchen, Emma called out, Mommy, I can't find the cookies. In a minute, sweetie, Jennifer called back, then turned to me. Look, Mom, we're willing to forget all of this if you just fix the will situation. We'll come to Sunday dinners again. We'll include you in holidays. The kids can visit. Everyone wins. Everyone wins, I repeated slowly. As long as I give you my money. It's not about the money. But Jennifer's eyes said otherwise. Brad stood up. Let's be real here. You're old. You're alone. You need us more than we need you. Your little rebellion was cute, but it's time to face facts. Without us, you have nobody. No family, no grandkids, nothing. Is that really what you want for your final years? The threat was clear. Submit or lose your grandchildren forever. I looked at Brad, at Jennifer, at the life they were offering me. Conditional love, transactional relationships, the privilege of being tolerated as long as I kept my checkbook open. And I looked toward the kitchen, where Emma and Jack were laughing over something, innocent children being raised by people who saw family as a business arrangement. Get out, I said quietly. What? Jennifer blinked. Get your children and get out of my house. Mom, you're being unreasonable. I'm being clear. You came here to manipulate me, using your children as props. You didn't come to apologize or reconcile. You came to bully me into compliance. It won't work. Brad's face darkened. You're making a huge mistake. The mistake was thinking you'd change. Now leave. Fine, Jennifer shot to her feet. Emma, Jack, we're leaving, now. Emma came running back, holding a stuffed animal I'd given her last year. But Gamma, leave it, Jennifer snapped. We don't need her old gifts. Emma's face crumpled. She gently set the stuffed animal on my coffee table and took her mother's hand. Jack started crying, reaching back toward me as Brad carried him out. At the door, Jennifer turned. You're going to regret this. When you're dying in some nursing home with no visitors, you'll regret choosing your pride over your family. If that's my family, I said, I'll die happy without it. The door slammed. I heard Emma crying in the driveway, asking why they had to leave, why Grandma was crying. I was crying. I hadn't even realized. I locked the door and slid down against it, shaking. Not from doubt, from rage, from grief, from the terrible clarity of seeing exactly who Jennifer had become and knowing I couldn't save her from herself. But underneath the fear and sadness, there was something else. Resolve? They'd shown their true faces today. They'd proven that every decision I'd made was right. I wouldn't back down. I wouldn't give in. Even if it meant spending my final years alone, I'd spend them with dignity. 3 weeks before Christmas, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text. A formal letter delivered by certified mail. From a law firm I'd never heard of. Peterson and Associates. Dear Mrs. Morrison, we represent Jennifer and Bradley Matthews in the matter of your estate and allegations of undue influence by outside parties. Our clients have expressed serious concerns about your recent mental state and the suspicious changes made to your will under questionable circumstances. They were actually doing it. They were actually trying to claim I was incompetent. I called James immediately. I got it too, he said grimly. It's a fishing expedition. They're hoping to intimidate you into changing the will before this goes to court. They have no case. But they'll try anyway. They'll try, which is why we need to be prepared. He paused. Eleanor, this is going to get ugly. They'll drag out every difficult moment of your relationship, every argument, every time you forgot something or seemed confused. They'll paint you as a bitter, senile old woman being manipulated by greedy advisors. Are you ready for that? Was I? I thought about Emma's face when Jennifer had made her leave the stuffed animal. I thought about being called an old woman. I thought about every lie, every manipulation, every moment of cruelty. Yes, I said, I'm ready. James scheduled a competency evaluation with Dr. Rebecca Santos, a respected geriatric psychiatrist. I spent 3 hours answering questions, taking cognitive tests, discussing my financial decisions and life history. Dr. Santos was thorough and kind. Mrs. Morrison, she said at the end, you are one of the most mentally competent people I've evaluated. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is sound. Your understanding of your finances is comprehensive. Anyone claiming otherwise is either misinformed or lying. Can you put that in a legal document? Already drafting it. The court hearing was scheduled for January 15th. Jennifer's lawyers had pushed for an emergency intervention, but the judge had reviewed the preliminary evidence and found no cause for immediate action. We had time to prepare, and prepare I did. I documented everything. The social media posts, the text messages, the financial records of all the money I'd given them. Margaret Chen compiled a detailed analysis showing I'd made sound financial decisions, even while being generous to Jennifer. James gathered character witnesses, Tom and Barbara from Vermont, Patricia, Brad's own mother, who'd agreed to testify, members of my support group, my doctor, even the librarian at the local library where I'd started volunteering. But Jennifer was preparing too. A week before the hearing, a local news reporter showed up at my door. Mrs. Morrison, I'm doing a story about elder financial abuse and family estrangement. Your daughter reached out to us claiming she's been unjustly cut off by advisors exploiting you. Would you like to comment? So that was their play. Public pressure. Make me the villain, themselves the victims of predatory lawyers and financial advisors. Yes, I said, I'd like to comment. Come in. I gave that reporter everything. The full story, with documentation. The Thanksgiving rejection, the social media posts, the pattern of asking for money. I showed her the emails, the texts, the financial records. I gave her Dr. Santos's evaluation, Margaret Chen's analysis, everything. This isn't a story about exploitation, I said. This is a story about an adult child who treated her mother like an ATM and is now angry the ATM is closed. The story ran 2 days before the hearing. The headline, Local Woman Defends Right to Control Her Own Estate After Daughter's Rejection. Jennifer called me 30 times that day. I didn't answer. Brad sent threatening emails. I forwarded them to James. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in my best suit, the one Robert had loved, the one I'd worn to his funeral. I met James at the courthouse at 8 a.m. We reviewed the strategy one final time. They're going to try to provoke you, James warned. Stay calm, stay factual. Don't let them see emotion. I won't. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Jennifer and Brad sat on one side with their lawyer, a slick young man in an expensive suit. I sat with James on the other. The judge, Honorable Martha Blackwell, was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. Jennifer's lawyer went first, painting a picture of a confused elderly woman manipulated by opportunistic advisors who'd poisoned her against her loving family. He made Jennifer cry on the stand, real tears this time, or at least convincing ones, as she described how her beloved mother had changed after Robert's death, how she'd become paranoid and hostile. "I just want my mom back," Jennifer sobbed. "I don't care about the money. I just want her in our lives." It was a good performance. Even I almost believed it. Then it was our turn. James methodically presented the evidence. The social media posts showing Jennifer's Thanksgiving celebration with the caption about real family. The text messages where she'd called me dramatic and told me to grow up. The financial records showing a pattern of requests for money followed by emotional distance. The emails asking for $20,000 just days after the Thanksgiving rejection. Dr. Santos testified about my mental competency. Margaret Chen explained how I'd made careful, rational financial decisions with professional guidance. Patricia, Brad's own mother, testified that she'd witnessed the Thanksgiving incident and found Jennifer's treatment of me appalling and cruel. And then I took the stand. I told my story. Simply, factually, without dramatization. I explained how I'd tried to be a good mother, how I'd given everything I could, and how I'd finally realized that my daughter saw me not as a person, but as a resource. Jennifer's lawyer tried to rattle me. "Mrs. Morrison, isn't it true you've always been somewhat controlling of your daughter's life?" "I've always tried to be involved and supportive." "If that's controlling, then yes. And isn't it true you've made substantial gifts to Jennifer over the years?" "Yes, which is why her treatment of me was so hurtful." "But now you're punishing her for one bad moment?" "No, I'm protecting myself from ongoing mistreatment." "Mrs. Morrison, do you love your daughter?" The question hung in the air. Everyone waited. "I love the person I thought she was," I said carefully. "I'm not sure I ever really knew her." Judge Blackwell called for a recess. When we reconvened an hour later, her decision was swift. "I've reviewed all the evidence," she said. "Mrs. Morrison is clearly competent to make her own decisions. The will stands as written. This case is dismissed." The gavel came down. Jennifer's face went white. Brad started arguing with their lawyer. And I walked out of that courtroom with my head high. I'd won. The news article about the court case went viral. "Daughter sues mother for inheritance, loses spectacularly," read one headline. Comments flooded in, thousands of people sharing their own stories of toxic adult children, of family betrayal, of choosing self-respect over obligation. Jennifer and Brad became local pariahs overnight. I heard through Patricia that Brad's business lost several major clients who'd seen the coverage. His business partner quietly bought him out at a substantial loss. The expansion they'd wanted my $20,000 for never happened. Jennifer had to quit her job at the insurance agency after her co-workers made her too uncomfortable. She couldn't show her face at Emma's preschool without whispers following her, but I felt no joy in their downfall, only relief that it was over. I threw myself into my new life. I joined the library's book club and made friends with 3 other widows, all building lives defined by more than their children. We had wine nights and went to movies and actually talked about things beyond family drama. I started volunteering at the hospital, reading to patients who had no visitors. I could offer them something I desperately needed. Proof that they still mattered, that they still had value. I took that painting class. Turns out I was terrible at it, but I didn't care. I laughed at my lopsided trees and muddy colors. My instructor said the point wasn't perfection, but expression. The support group became a lifeline. Every Tuesday evening, I met with 8 other people navigating estrangement from adult children. I was no longer alone in my grief. Margaret Chen became more than my financial advisor. She became a friend. "You didn't just protect your money," she told me. "You protected your dignity." James called me on Valentine's Day with news. Jennifer's lawyers filed a notice. They're dropping all claims and appeals. It's over. Completely over. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Free," I said honestly. "Finally free." I redecorated Robert's study, making space for my own life. I set up a crafting table, hung new curtains, painted the walls a soft blue that I loved. My friend Susan visited in March. "You've bloomed," she told me. "When I met you, you were broken. Look at you now." I looked around my house. Fresh flowers I'd bought for myself, books from the library, a half-finished painting, photos of my book club friends beside the old family photos. I thought losing Jennifer would destroy me, I admitted. But it saved me. In April, I took a trip to Italy. Just me, a rolling suitcase, and a guidebook. I wandered through Rome, ate pasta in Florence, watched sunsets in Venice. One evening in Tuscany, an elderly Italian woman named Lucia asked if I was traveling alone. "Yes," I said, "it's my first time." "Solo traveling at your age? Brava!" She raised her wine glass. "To brave women who know their worth." We drank to that. James called in June with news that Jennifer and Brad were moving to North Carolina. "Fresh start, I suppose." "Good for them," I said, and I meant it. "Do you want me to reach out, offer closure?" No, the closure happened in that courtroom. I'd given Jennifer 38 years of my life. The rest belonged to me. A year after the court case, my life had transformed completely. The lonely widow counting down days between phone calls from a daughter who barely tolerated her. She felt like someone from another lifetime. I'd bought a new car, renovated my kitchen with big windows I'd always wanted, and adopted a rescue dog named Sunny who followed me everywhere. My calendar was full. Monday mornings, hospital volunteering. Tuesday evenings, support group. Wednesday afternoons, painting class. Thursday, book club. Weekends, hiking with Susan, day trips with friends, or quiet days at home with Sunny and a good book. I wasn't lonely, I was living. The charity organizations named in my will sent regular updates. I'd started contributing more during my lifetime, attending fundraisers. The Children's Hospital named a reading room after Robert and me. At the dedication ceremony, surrounded by doctors, nurses, and grateful families, I felt pride in how my money was being used. Laura from book club became one of my closest friends. She was 72, had 3 children who rarely called, and had decided years ago not to waste time being sad about it. Life's too short to pine for people who don't want you around. She taught me bridge, introduced me to her church community, and treated me like the sister she'd never had. My house became a gathering place. I hosted dinner parties and holiday celebrations. My chosen family filled the space that had once echoed with loneliness. Meanwhile, through small-town gossip and Patricia's occasional updates, I heard about Jennifer and Brad's struggles. The move to North Carolina hadn't been the fresh start they'd hoped for. Brad's reputation followed him. Potential employers found articles about the lawsuit. He'd taken a job well below his qualifications, making half his former salary. Jennifer worked as a receptionist, far from her insurance agency position. They'd bought a small house in a mediocre neighborhood. Emma had been pulled from private preschool. The family vacations they used to post on social media had stopped. Patricia had grown closer to me. "Brad won't speak to us anymore," she told me over coffee. "He says we betrayed the family by testifying for you. Jennifer's marriage is falling apart. Brad blames her for everything, the lawsuit, the money they spent on lawyers, his career damage. Emma asks about you sometimes," Patricia added quietly. My heart twisted, but I stayed firm. "When she's old enough, if she wants a relationship with me, I'll consider it. But not while she's being raised by people who taught her to manipulate others." I heard that Jennifer had tried reconnecting with old friends back home, but found doors closed. The story had spread. Nobody wanted to be friends with someone who'd publicly humiliated their own mother. I didn't celebrate these reports. I felt sad that Jennifer had destroyed her own life through greed and cruelty. But I didn't feel guilty. I hadn't caused this. Jennifer had made her choices. Meanwhile, I thrived. I'd started writing, journal entries that became essays about loss and renewal. One piece, "When Letting Go Means Holding On to Yourself," was published in a magazine for seniors. I received dozens of letters from grateful readers. The local newspaper asked me to write a monthly column called Second Chapters. It became popular. I went to Ireland with Laura and friends from book club. We toured castles, drank Guinness in Irish pubs, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. At 69, I was having more fun than I'd had in decades. On Thanksgiving, the second one since the incident, I hosted dinner. 15 people came: book club friends, support group members, Patricia and her husband, Tom and Barbara from Vermont. We filled my dining room with laughter and genuine affection. As I looked around that table, I realized something profound. I'd spent years defining myself through others. But now I was Eleanor Morrison, writer, volunteer, friend, world traveler, and a woman who'd learned the difference between love and obligation. Jennifer had tried to destroy me. Instead, she'd set me free, and I was grateful. That Thanksgiving wasn't the day I lost my daughter. It was the day I found myself. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. It's determined by how you treat yourself. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes the family you build is stronger than the family you're born into. Don't let anyone convince you that blood obligates you to accept abuse. You deserve respect, genuine love, and peace. What would you have done in my place? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe. Sometimes the greatest gift is the courage to let go. Thank you for listening. Your second chapter can be your best chapter.